Today, I want to explore one of the most misunderstood words in spirituality, prayer. Not through the lens of religion, but through the lens of conscious participation. For thousands of years, human beings have been asking the same questions. Who are we? Why are we here? Who am I? How do we experience the divine? Every spiritual tradition has offered its own language, and every culture has developed its own rituals. Yet beneath all of them, I believe, this is the same invitation. Become present. Because prayer isn't asking life for something. Prayer is gratitude and appreciation for which is already unfolding. It's not about trying to convince the universe to change. It's about becoming coherent with the life that is already inviting you deeper into awareness. Today, we're going to explore why presence is power and why gratitude transforms the field from which we create, and why prayer is far less to do about words than it has to do with the way we choose to live. Hello, and welcome to the Aligned Human Project. I'm your host, Dawn Elgin. If you've ever looked around at your life that appears successful on the outside, but feels disconnected on the inside, you are in the right place. If you've ever wondered why you keep repeating the same patterns, carrying the same emotional weight, or chasing goals that never quite bring you the peace you hope they would, you are in the right place. This podcast is about remembering who you were before the world told you who you needed to be. Together, we'll explore the intersection of neuroscience, psychology, ancient wisdom, quantum science, and practical spiritualism to understand how awareness shapes our field and how our field shapes our lives, and why lasting change begins from the inside out. We'll talk about leadership, relationships, health, purpose, emotional well-being, and conscious creation, not as separate parts of life, but as reflections of one thing, our level of alignment. Because most people don't need another strategy. They need a new relationship with themselves. So whether you're leading a business, a family, a team, or simply trying to lead yourself with greater intention, welcome. Take a breath. Become the witness, and let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to the Aligned Human Project. Over the last few weeks, I have been explaining the concept I have regarding the room that we're all born with. So if this is your first time joining us, or you haven't listened to the last few, then I'll do a really quick catch up. And for those of you that are rejoining me, it's just a good reminder for us as to what we're looking at here, because we're constantly being inundated with information. So for years, centuries, probably decades, people have been talking about how we carry our own baggage. And the way that I visualize this or understand this is that we are all born with a room. And this room is within us. The ancient mystics would call it the castle within. The shamanic traditions refer to it as the sacred inner place. For many religions, we would talk about it as the seat of the soul. But I think of it as this room that we carry. And we're born with this room. And when we're given this room at our birth, it often comes pre-furnished. And so it gets the hand-me-downs from our parents, from our family, from society. And so we enter into this world already with things within the room. And then for the first 18 years, really, we collect. And so for the first 8, we're collecting our meaning-making, our beliefs about the world and our place within it. And then after about 18 years, we are supposed to start emptying the room. But for most of us, we don't know that. So we just keep accumulating stuff. But now we get to this point where we're just opening the door, tossing it in. Get a heartbreak? No problem. Put it in the room. You don't want to forget that stuff. You're going to carry it with you for your life so it never happens again. We have all sorts of reasons that we make, excuses and justifications for holding on to the dramas and traumas that have happened to us. And so we accumulate all this stuff, not even realizing by the time we become 30, 40, 50 or more, that we've become a bit of hoarders. And our job was actually to empty the room, not to fill it up. It's kind of like life itself. We often accumulate things, not realizing that's actually not the point of life. And the accumulation of those things doesn't give us our value, our worth, or our identity. And that's exactly what it's like inside that room. Here's the wounds I've had. Here's what I've survived. And we hold on to them and make them, this is who I am. And the problem is this room was supposed to be empty. This room is the room of pure potential. And every single thing that we put in there interferes with that potential. And so we fill this up, and how difficult is it for us to see ourself, our most expansive self, our pure perfection? And so the journey of the human experience is first to create and to release. We're only supposed to experience it and then move on. And so this is the journey, or the metaphor I give of the room. And this is how I actually handle my own personal healing or releasing journey, is this room. And so the idea is the first part is we ask the question, who am I? And we start having some awareness. Wait a minute, I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my emotions. I'm not my body. And awareness is light. It's pure information. That's what light is. That's why a closet seems scary in the dark, but when you flick a light on, there's no problems. Light is pure information. It's beautiful. It makes us feel safe, makes us feel secure. It makes us feel comfortable, warm, cozy. Just think about how light works. And so awareness is light. And so you suddenly become aware, and that might come from a podcast, a friend, a coach, a spiritual tradition. And what that means is that person, place, or thing gave you the opportunity to understand that there's a light switch. You flip the switch on, you become aware of all the stuff that's in your room. Now, you can't see it all because it's buried underneath each other, but you get a general idea of how much stuff is in here. Now, if you're like me, I became aware of this room over 10 years ago, so before the age of 40. And my first instinct was, oh my God, that's a lot of shit. I closed the room, poured a glass of wine, and then explained to everybody I have this huge room and this is why it's filled with all of this stuff. And I justified its existence because it would still take me a while to understand that the point was to empty the room, not keep everything in the room. So this is what we're talking about when we're coming into the work that we're doing here. So we've come into this room and now we've turned on the light. And at this point, maybe we've even started to let go of some of the things that we've been carrying. We've opened the filing cabinets of old stories and grudges. We've adjusted the thermostat for core beliefs. We've even taken off the old glasses that were quietly coloring the way we saw ourselves and the world around us. Little by little, we've been discovering that lasting transformation doesn't begin by changing our circumstances. It actually begins by changing the field from which we experience those circumstances. We've learned that meaning creates belief. Belief creates the field of mind. And the field creates our conditions. And the conditions produce the symptoms. And the symptoms point us back to the meaning. Round and round we go. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Today, I'd like to take one more step. Once we've begun cultivating this field, how do we actually live from it? My answer is simple. We become prayer. Not because we say beautiful words, and not because we perform a ritual, because we embody a coherent way of being. Prayer is not asking. Prayer is gratitude and appreciation for that which is already unfolding. And when we truly understand that, every single conversation becomes sacred. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to participate consciously. Every breath becomes an invitation to remember who we really are. So, let's begin. I think we've inherited a misunderstanding. Many of us grew up believing that prayer was something that we did. You close your eyes, maybe you fold your hands, maybe you bow your head, and then you ask. You hope someone is listening, hope something is changing. But over the years, as I've studied ancient wisdom, neuroscience, contemplative traditions, and spent thousands of hours coaching people, a different understanding has emerged. Prayer isn't asking. Prayer is participating. Prayer is the conscious act of bringing ourselves into relationship with the unfolding of life. Notice what changes. When prayer becomes asking, the future becomes the focus. But when prayer becomes participation, presence becomes the focus. And here's why that matters. You see, your spirit itself, and your soul exist only in the present moment. You can remember the past and you can imagine the future, but you can only encounter spirit right now. That's why presence is power. Not because presence gives us control, because presence gives us access to awareness, access to free will, access to sovereignty. And sovereignty is the repeated practice of consciously choosing from witness rather than reacting from survival mind. That's where prayer begins, not with words, with presence. One of the remarkable discoveries in neuroscience is that attention changes experience. Where attention goes, neural activity follows. So repeated attention strengthens neural pathways. Repeated emotional experiences strengthen physiological patterns. Repeated interpretations strengthen beliefs. This is why presence is so transformative. Presence interrupts the automatic prediction. Instead of reacting from yesterday's conditioning, the brain becomes available to respond to today's reality. Contemplative practices have invited human beings into this state for thousands of years. Modern neuroscience is now helping us understand why they can be so transformative. When we become fully present, stress physiology begins to settle. Awareness begins to expand. And emotional regulation begins to improve. We're better able to observe rather than immediately react. Within Field and Form, I see this as the doorway where free will enters the system. Presence doesn't erase conditioning. Presence creates enough space that conditioning no longer has to make the next decision. That's why I say awareness allows us to observe. Alignment allows us to participate. And creation allows us to express. Everything begins here, in this breath, in this moment, exactly where spirit and your soul has always been waiting. Let's make a distinction that has completely transformed my own spiritual practice. There is a difference between intention and attention. Many of us have become incredibly good at setting intentions. I want to be healthier. I want a better relationship. I want more peace. I want to grow my business. Those intentions matter. However, intentions alone do not create our lives. The quality of our lives is not determined by the intensity of our intentions. It's determined by the coherence of the field from which the intentions arise. That's why two people can set exactly the same intention and create completely different experiences. One is striving, while the other is surrendering. One is trying to prove, and the other is expressing. One is acting from fear or lack, while the other is participating through trust. The intention sounds identical. The field could not be more different. The field always comes first. Then the form follows. Every single time. One of the things I find so fascinating is that science and ancient wisdom often arrive at the same place, but using different language. Neuroscience teaches us that attention shapes the brain. Repeated attention strengthens neural pathways. Repeated emotional states influence our physiology. Repeated experiences of appreciation, gratitude, and compassion are associated with greater emotional regulation and more coherent patterns in communication between the heart and the brain. HeartMath has spent decades studying these physiological patterns. They've shown that the way we feel influences the way our body functions. Ancient contemplative traditions were pointing toward the same thing, the same truth, long before we had instruments to measure it. Not because they understood heart rate variability, because they understood the human heart. They understood that gratitude changes us, compassion changes us, forgiveness changes us, presence changes us. Not because those states manipulate life, because they transform the person who is participating in life. That's why I don't see meditation, contemplation, gratitude, or prayer as separate practices. They're all invitations into coherence. Different doors, the same room. Different paths, but the same mountain. Different words, but the same truth. Presence is where spirit is encountered. Gratitude is how we participate in that encounter. That's why gratitude isn't something we do after life becomes beautiful. Gratitude is one of the ways we begin recognizing all the beauty that has been there all along. Imagine standing beside a river. You desperately want to reach the ocean. So every day you scoop up handfuls of water and throw them downstream. You work harder, you throw faster, you become exhausted. Then one day, someone quietly says, "Stop trying to push the river." The river already knows where it's going. Your job isn't to force the current. Your job is to learn how to move with it. This is the shift from asking to participating, from striving to surrendering, from control to coherence. The river doesn't need your effort. It asks for your willingness. You see, we often mistake effort for alignment. And survival tries to force what trust allows us to just let unfold. And presence helps us recognize the current is already moving. Gratitude opens us up to participate. And life becomes lighter when we stop fighting the river and we start flowing with it. Prayer isn't convincing life to move in your direction. Prayer is becoming coherent enough to move with life. The 5 elements reveal this beautifully. When wood is expressing from survival, it pushes the river. When fire is expressing from survival, it looks for applause along the riverbank. When earth is expressing from survival, it keeps stopping to carry everyone else's canoe. When metal is expressing from survival, it criticizes the river for not flowing in a straight line. When water is expressing from survival, it hesitates to step into the current until every uncertainty has disappeared. However, when the elements become aligned, wood trusts right timing. Fire delights in the journey. Earth walks beside others without carrying them. Metal appreciates the wisdom of the river's course, and water trusts what cannot yet be seen. The river never changed. The relationship with it did. So if prayer is participation, and participation begins with presence, how do we begin this way of being into ordinary life, into parenting, into leadership, into conflict, into the moments when life doesn't unfold the way we hoped or thought it should? Because that's where practical spiritualism either becomes a philosophy or becomes a way of living. Let's finish there. If prayer is a way of being, then leadership becomes a sacred practice. Not because leaders are more important, because every human being influences the field around them. Whether you're leading a company or raising a child, teaching a classroom, serving a client, or simply having dinner with someone that you love, you are contributing to the field. Every moment asks the same question. What are you bringing into this relationship? Not what are you trying to get? Not how do you win? Not even how do you protect yourself or others? What are you bringing? Presence? Curiosity? Maybe compassion? Patience? Trust? Or is it fear? Control? Judgment? Or maybe urgency? Every relationship becomes a mirror, not to shame us, to reveal the field we've been cultivating. That's why I don't believe leadership begins with influence. Leadership actually begins with stewardship. Stewardship of the field we bring into every single room. Now, I'd like to invite you into a different morning practice this week. Not a longer practice, but maybe a deeper one. So before you reach for your phone, the first thing we want to do is pause. Even while you're just lying in bed, just pause for a moment. Feel your breath. Feel your body from your fingers and your toes. And notice that life is already happening. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are breathing in and out. The sun has maybe risen. Life has begun another day without asking anything of you. Now, allow appreciation to rise. Not because you forced it, because you've noticed what has always been there. And then ask one question. How can I participate with life today? Not how can I get more? Not how can I control the outcome? Simply, how can I participate with love today? And then carry that question into every conversation, every decision, every challenge, every celebration, every goodbye, and every beginning. Watch what changes. Not because life becomes easier, because you begin meeting life from a different field. The longer I walk this path, the simpler it becomes. We are not here to master life. We are here to participate in it. We're not here to control the unfolding. We're here to become conscious participants in the unfolding. That's why I believe every genuine spiritual tradition eventually arrives at the same place. Presence, compassion, gratitude, love, different languages, but the same invitation. That invitation is to remember, not simply who we are, but how we are called to live. The witness is who we are. Relationship is what we're here to experience. Every relationship with ourselves, with our bodies, with our history, with one another, even with the earth and with the divine. Prayer is simply the way we consciously, with intention, with free will, enter into that relationship. Not asking, participating. Not waiting, becoming. Not someday, now. Because spirit is never waiting for us in the future. Spirit is encountered only in this moment. And every moment we become fully present. We remember something survival could never teach us. We were never separate. This week, I invite you to replace one habit. Whenever you catch yourself asking, why is this happening to me? I'm going to ask you to pause and take one deep breath all the way down to your belly. And then ask instead, how is life inviting me to participate here? And just notice what happens. That one question moves you from resistance into relationship, from fear into curiosity, from survival into sovereignty. And sovereignty is the repeated practice of consciously choosing from witness rather than reacting from the survival mind. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who has been longing for more practical ways to live their life spiritually. Maybe they don't need another belief. Maybe they need a different relationship with the life they're already living. And if you'd like to continue this journey with me, download the 5 Elements of Alignment Assessment and join us inside the Aligned Human Project and inside Align Your Life. Because every aligned life begins with an aligned relationship. I want to leave you with this. Prayer is not asking. Prayer is gratitude and appreciation for that which is already unfolding. Presence is where spirit and your soul are encountered, and gratitude is how we participate in that encounter. Compassion opens our awareness, and awareness reveals meaning. Meaning creates beliefs, beliefs create the field, and the field creates the conditions. The conditions produce the symptoms, and those symptoms point us right back to the meaning. Alignment, it changes the field. Creation changes the experience. And free will? Free will is the sacred gift of consciously choosing our relationship with every moment life places before us. This is sovereignty. Not control, not independence. Conscious participation. The witness is who you are. Relationship is why you are here. So today, meet life with gratitude. Meet people with compassion. And meet yourself with curiosity. Meet this moment with your full presence. Because this moment is holy. Not because of where you are, but because the divine has always been here. You are whole and complete. You are the witness. You shape your field, and your field shapes your life. Until next time. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. My hope is that you leave each episode not with more information, but with greater awareness. Because awareness is where every meaningful change begins. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's ready to stop surviving and start living from alignment. If you'd like to continue this work, you can join us inside the Aligned Human Project community. Explore the free 5-element alignment assessment or learn more about Align Your Life, Aligned Living, and Alignment Operating System at practicalspiritualismco.com. Remember, awareness reveals, alignment chooses, and creation follows. You are the witness. You shape the field, and the field shapes your life. Until next time, keep pausing, keep noticing, and keep choosing. I'll see you in the next episode.